Hello guys, this is Andrew and welcome to the second part of my tutorial how to loop files from a folder using PHP. Now, for those of you that haven't seen the first part of my tutorial, I strongly recommend you to watch it here, because if you don't watch it, maybe the second part of this tutorial will not make sense. And okay, let's begin. So here we are. If you remember from the first tutorial, for those of you that have seen the first part, are we stopped here when we populated this variable files array, which is in fact an array with all the names of the files that were inside this folder gallery here. Inside this folder gallery we have these images and also the thumbnails here, and I will quickly demonstrate that to you. I will say echo print r files array. Gonna hit save, and as you can see here on my browser, on this script loop images.php, we have this array here outputted, and you can see that this array here, files array, has assigned a key value for each file name here. So each file name here will be identified by this unique key here. We have to keep in mind this because this will be very important during the process. Okay. Now next I will put this in a user-friendly way using HTML, and I will do like this. HTML, I will create a simple HTML code. Inside the body tag I will create a div with a class of gallery holder, and now inside here I will loop the content of this variable here. Now usually to loop the content of an array we do for each loop like this. For each, for example, files array as file, for example, or file or image, but I will not use this method right now, and you will see during the process why I would not use this, and instead I will use the for loop. I will initialize here a variable called I equal to 0, then I is smaller than count files array I plus plus. So for those of you that know what this does, it's okay, but for those of you that don't know, is we are creating a for loop, and what this does, here we assigned a variable called I and assign the value of 0, and then we're saying that while this variable I here that we declared here is smaller than the count of all the files in this array, then we will increase the value of this from 0 by 1 each time that files are looped inside the for loop here. Next up, I will create an image tag, image source, and I would say gallery, and I will loop the thumbs here, not the big images, because the full-size images will take too long to load if you were in the real server. For example, you hosted somewhere on the internet your website, it would be extremely slow to load because these images are very very big, and this is why we need these thumbs here. And since the thumbs have the same name with the full-size images, I will use the same names here that are stored in this files array. I will say gallery thumbs. I will echo out a files array with the key of I here. Now, if you remember that I mentioned before that we should mind the keys of this files array here, the keys that this variable assigned to each file name that associated with the file name here, because that would be important, and this is the part when this is important. And here we will output each time the files array here where the key is equal to this value of I here. So the value of 0, files array is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. I'm gonna reload here, and as you can see here, everything's working fine. We can see the images here. Of course, this is a smaller version, downsized image, 150 by 100 pixels, meaning that we are looping files from the thumbs folder. Now we will also create an anchor tag which will transfer us to the full-sized image, and for the location of this A tag, I will use the same code as here, but this time we don't need to jump to the thumbs folder, and we will delete the thumbs part here, and I'll close the A tag, save, and I'm gonna refresh here, and if you notice here, you can see that the mouse here pointer was changed to a hand, to a pointer, which means that we have links here. And if I go ahead and click on one of these images here, you will see that we can browse in fact the full-sized image. We don't have any problems here. Now you might have seen tutorials like this on the net, which exists. This is not a very, let's say, unique way to do that, to do this process. But what sets this tutorial apart from the others is that I will show you a way to paginate the output here. Let's say, for example, that you have 1,000 images here, and certainly you don't want the visitors to scroll down forever to view your images, and also to increase the bandwidth usage. And you would want, for example, to paginate the pages to show, like in my case, for example, that I will illustrate. I want to show to you only 12 images for each page, and then I will provide a link here down to the 12 images, which will say next, and will send us to the next 12 images, and so on, to the next 12, and to the next 12, and to the next 12, until the loop reaches the end. And to do that, first of all, what we need to do is we need to count how many images we have here displayed, and I will say count and we'll echo the count, or let me do it in a more clearer way. I'll do it here. We'll say count, and I will say count equals 0. Save. And why I did that is because I need to increment the value of this variable here, count, by 1 each time that one image is displayed here inside the loop, is looped here. To do that, I can do like this. Just after the opening curly brace, I will say count plus plus, and it would have the same effect as this variable I here, which increments by 1. You can see here. Now, to limit the output, let's say for example when this value of the value of count here reaches the 12, which I have in mind here to stop the loop at 12th image, I would say here limit 12. So I want 12 images to be shown for each page. To limit that, I will write a simple conditional statement here, an if statement, just before the closing curly brace of the for loop here. I would say if limit is equal to count. So if the count has reached the same value as limit here, we will break the loop. Break, save, reload, and now as you can see here, we are not displaying the rest of the images, but we are displaying only the 12 images that we had, let's say, in mind to display. Of course now we don't have the links yet because I haven't created them yet, but I will show you during the tutorial. Now, to be able to paginate through, let's say to navigate through pages, you all know that we need to make let's say here URL requests, like page for example or something. I will use page variable, URL variable, and I need to initialize the variable here. But first of all, we would need to find out how many pages would we get from this files array here. So from the total of the counts of this variable, which will divide the limit, we will get the number of pages, the total number of pages that we have from this folder, let's say. Then we would say total pages is equal to seal. We need to round up the output here, or otherwise we would have problems. Count files array, as we did here. The same thing, we would count and have a total number of items that are stored inside the files array, which divides limit. And I will show you here how many pages came out from this code here, and I will say total pages echo total pages. Save here, reload, and we have a total of 3 pages here. Now next, we need to initialize that variable which I mentioned before, this variable page here, as you can see here. And to do that, I would do assign a variable page equals to if is set get, so the URL variable get page, then this variable page here will get this value, and we want this value to be an integer. Let's say get page Otherwise, we will want to see only the page number 1. So, if this variable page here, this variable page is equals to, if we set this variable, the URL variable get page, we will assign this variable the value of the variable get page, otherwise the value of 1. And next, we also need a system to tell to the for loop here what's the starting point, where the loop should, from when, or sorry, not from when, from where the loop should start looping the information from the folder. Let's say, for example, right now is looping the file 0 here from the files array, from the file 0 and on. Now I want, for example, this loop to continue from the file 12 and on. Now if I go here and reload, you will see that we are viewing the next 12 images here, and I need a dynamic way to do this, because of course we don't need to change the value here each time. I will rewrite 0 here, and I would say start. Let's say this is a starting point. The starting point would be page -1. Now why we do page -1 is, you remembered before that the files array, the first key of an array here is always 0, so we need to start at 0 point times limit, and then instead of this value of 0 here, we will say start, then save, reload, and we are at the first page here again. Now if we do page 2, for example, we are at the page 2, and if we do page 3, we'll go to the last page, which is the page 3 here, and we will view the last images here. Next, we will create the links to navigate through these pages, and I will create a div tag here, which I will call class nav. I will align the text to center here, and I would say if page is greater than 1, so if we are viewing not the first page, the second page, or the third page, or the fourth page, then we will display a link here which will send us back until we reach the page number 1. So to the previous page, to the previous pages, until we reach the page number 1. We'll say a href page is equal to page -1. Then we will say here ref and you can see here, oops, sure, because we are at page number 1, and the link we said the link display only if we were at the page 2, for example, in a page that it is greater than 1, and I will say here page 3, so our last page, and you can see here that we have this previous link. If we go ahead and click, it will show until it reaches the page number 1. Next, I will copy this code here. I will paste it below this code, and this time I would say if total pages is greater than page, which means then if our total pages is greater than the page that we are requesting on the browser, then we will display a link to go to the next page until it reaches the end. If we are at the last page, this link won't show. We don't need to display this link. I would say page plus 1. So we increase each time by 1 until we reach the total pages. And I will say next here. And I will reload. You see now that we don't have the previous link here because we are at the same page, but we have the next link to navigate to the next page here. So next, previous, next, next. We are at the end here. We don't need the next anymore. Let's say previous, previous. We are at the first page. We don't need the next page anymore. Now I will do another code here to give a visitor a hint in what page they are viewing, and I would say viewing page of. We'll reload, and we're saying to our visitors that they are viewing the page number 1 of 3, so they have a way here to know where they are. Next, 2 of 3, next, 3 of 3, they reach the end. And for the last thing to do here is we need to fix a problem, a small problem, but it's good if we do that. Now let's say, for example, if the user manually inputs here this page that doesn't exist, -25, you will see that our loop will break here, and the viewers are left with this image here, with this message viewing page -25 of 3, which doesn't exist. Or if they input, for example, the page in fact 25, which for the moment doesn't exist, the message here would say that viewing page 25 of 3, which of course doesn't exist. At least in our case here we don't have 25 pages, and to fix that we need a way here to redirect our page to a normal page, and we would say, for example, if page is smaller than 1, which doesn't exist. We don't have any pages with a number smaller than 1. Or if page is greater than total pages, then the variable page will again take the value of 1, and this code here, this line of code, will reset the value if these two conditions here aren't met, which means that if the visitor typed in the browser something like -25, or page greater than total pages, which in our case we have 3 pages, and they type, for example, 4th page or 5th page or 25th page. I'm gonna refresh here. I'm gonna reload to see the result, and as you can see here, we are not anymore at page 25, even if they type here manually. They are redirected to the page number 1, and the next button here, next link, will work as before, as you can see here. Now you can use, for example, some jQuery here or styling to pretty up the output here, to create some light boxes and things, but this is not my intention in this tutorial. However, this is a very good way to start uh, of where to start looping files. For example, if you want to upload not only images, but if you want to upload uh, Word, Excel, or other types of files. Okay guys, that's it. I hope you enjoy the tutorial, and if you like it, please rate and comment.